Are you finding that your routine work is replaced by knowledge style work? Is your business and the processes more complex than what they used to be? Are exceptions becoming the norm now? They're not the rule, they're the norm. Are the infrastructure or are the information management tools that you use a lot more complex than what they used to be, and a lot more sophisticated than what they used to be? And is it harder to manage all the change in your organization as everyone is stuck in this analysis paralysis environment? Hi, I'm Pieter van Schalkwyk. I'm the Chief Agility Officer at XMPRo, and I'd like to tell you that Agile business might be the new normal for you. So if you look at this photo, how agile are you? Would you like to be more agile? And probably not yourself if you look at this photo, but you can ask the same question about your business. Would you like your business to be more agile, and so that you can bend over backwards to accommodate changes in business environment? As you can see, it looks pretty uncomfortable, but as soon as you've got the hang of it, it actually adds a lot of value to what you do. So today we're going to have a look at how agile business changed the way that we work, and also our expectations of the tools that we use to manage that work. So essentially three things I'm going to talk about today, or that I'm going to look at. And the one is how did we change to agile business? Now, when did this happen? The second thing is how did it change the way that we work? And then thirdly, how do we change the tools that we use to support this new way of work? So let's start with the first one. Is agile business the new normal? So the first thing I'd like to have a look is the change to agile, the actual change that happens to agile business, and just looking at how did this happen. So, and what do we mean by agile business? So I'd like to approach this once again from three different angles. And the first one is to look at the dictionary definition of what agile means. And what I quite like is the fact that it says it is a quick and well-coordinated in movement, sort of agile leap, and secondly, the ability to think quickly. And if you look at the antonyms, it's awkward, sluggish, and which of these describe your business? This may not be sort of quite like what your business is right at the moment, or the way that you see the current way that your business works, but is this the sort of way that your business needs to go? Is from this definition, would you like to have a more quick and responsive versus awkward and sluggish type business? The challenge is that even though you may not be making that change, a lot of businesses around you are doing that. So for example, 5 years ago, the average product life cycle was around 2 years, and now it is less than 2 months. And in consumer electronics, it is even down to 3 months for some products. So I don't know if you've noticed, if you've gone by a Sony video camera or even just a Dell notebook, that 3 months after you bought a specific model, it's no longer available. The whole product life cycle has become so quick, and everything around us has become active and lively rather than sluggish. Software has gone the same way. How often do you find that your iPhone install app updates? Mine does it at least once a week on the software itself. And if you look at guys like Microsoft, which in the enterprise software space, you'll find that Microsoft Office seems to have a new version every year. And I hear with Windows 8, they're now talking Windows 7, Windows 8, and I'm not sure. I know they've started working on Windows 9, so they can't use Windows 2008 anymore, because within 2011, 12, 14, and by the time we get to Windows 2016, they'll probably have one every quarter. So they had to change the numbering convention just to be able to accommodate the change that we see as everything accelerates and it goes forward. So if we look at at Agile from a software perspective, and most people know Agile as a software development methodology. This is not what this talk is around. It is not, but it really gives us a good framework to understand how other areas of business have adopted an Agile approach. In actual fact, the Agile guys have come, when I say Agile guys, the Agile software development guys have come up with what they call the Agile Manifesto. And because of this fast-changing pace in software development, and we can replace a lot of the words in here with business words, but what I'm going to do right now is just very quickly, it's all around interactions. It's all around things that work right now instead of spending your life designing. It doesn't say that there's no documentation, but it's making sure that there's working software, working business processes, working in business intelligence or whatever the case, instead of spending so much time. If you look at the BI tools, the whole intelligent experimentation, I love that term for BPM as well, but the whole working software concept. So you'll get your BI working quickly, get your BPM working quickly, get your strategies working quickly, instead of spending a lot of time trying to document that. And then also collaboration over contract negotiation. So there's a continuous collaboration in this whole Agile approach. So if you look at the software world as a methodology, they were the leading guys in this, and it's a great example of what I see as Agile as a methodology, even for businesses and business processes. And they've come up with 12 principles. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can actually look it up at the agilemanifesto.org. Some of the interesting things are that the highest priority is to satisfy the customer and to continuously deliver value. You can take the software out. And you can continuously make changes, because that is what happens in an Agile world. There's continuous changes. You deliver new working things regularly. That doesn't mean to say that it's uncontrolled. There's actually a lot of control in the whole Agile world. It is quite simple, but it embodies the whole radical change of what we've seen in the software world, where we've gone from a top-down programming, like some of myself and a couple of other people on this webinar may remember the days that we did structured COBOL programming, where we had a whole top-down approach. Those of us in Fortran that still did coding on sheets will remember top-down. And we had to use a waterfall model. You had to specify everything right to the nth degree, because it was really hard to make any changes. And so from the waterfall model, which is a very structured, you specify, you develop, you test everything, and there are no changes to the spec at any or to what you deliver. All requirements are locked down based on that specification, because of the way that top-down programming used to work. And it reminds me of structured business processes as well. So the release cycles were long, and you couldn't move from the spec. It didn't really work well. If we look at all the overruns and things on that, where it's a very rigid and strictly controlled process. What has happened with newer programming languages is that we've got the whole object orientation, which is sort of an unstructured programming approach, for lack of a better description. I'm pretty sure the technical guys will grill me for this, but I see it as a sort of, we create all these functions and I can call them at any point in time. So if you look at, and one of the things, the key drivers for this was the change that Windows and these graphical interfaces brought. If I right-click on my mouse, there's an action that I need to do. So it needs to call that specific object, it needs to do what it needs to do, and then it goes away. So that, with that, the whole Agile development methodology also started, because I can make these small little chunks of object code, and I can call it. It doesn't have to be sequential. It's not top-down. I can call it when I need it. It sort of created a whole new opportunity to create Agile development tools as well, where we can shorten the development cycle. We can get products out quicker, and it's easier to add functions without breaking the logic, which is one of the challenges that you have with top-down structured programming, and that's why the whole waterfall model worked well for that. What's nice with the Agile software development methodology is that it's flexible and it allows for a Agile development approach, which is essentially what we want in a lot of what we do in business as well. So does that, if you replace some of these words that I've got on the screen here with business type words, like the one that I just love is the simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Now, to me, that is really just such a profound statement of what you want to do in business. What we find is everyone is making it just so much harder to do stuff. And our approach at XMPRo is really to see how can we maximize the art of how can we perfect the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. So the whole Agile software development methodology is quite well known, and it's got its challenges, but it's really, if you look at what the objective is and what it's trying to achieve, it really suits the way that businesses work right now. So those are the 12 principles, and you can substitute a lot of the software words with business words, and it may sound a little bit like what your business is or what you would like your business to be like. So one of the best definitions I've seen of agility, and it comes out of a CIO magazine, is really, it was done by Michael Schrag, and it's he says in the first and final analysis, agility is about timely and cost-effective implementation, and that is a key driver these days. Things need to be cost-effective. Even doesn't matter what we implement, whether it's a software-based solution, whether it's business intelligence, whether it's BPM, whether it's strategy planning, whether it doesn't really matter what it is. But what he says is that is the key part. Full stop. There's no question about it. It needs to be timely and cost-effective. Planning is nice. Analysis is good. Governance is groovy. But agility means action. Agility implies both the capacity and capability to act now, immediately, real time. To me, this is such a powerful statement of what we're trying to achieve in business. We need to have the capacity and the capability to act. We need to do it right now. We need to make the changes right now, and we would like to do it in real time. Now, there are some challenges with putting some of these things in, and that's really one of XMPRo's driving ambitions is to make sure that we can achieve this with business processes as well. So is that how we should see business processes? If I look at what we used to do in terms of modeling all the as-is and to-bes and trying to come up with the right thing, this whole agility process would get us to our business objectives a lot quicker. So what is an agile business process? So I'm just going to quickly talk about, and I've got business/process because it's actually business, but a key driver of business is business processes, and XMPRo's business is business processes. So we are not a workflow tool, we are a process management tool, and processes, just by definition, is not necessarily sequential or a workflow. It is activities that drive a specific business outcome, and they don't need to be in a sequential form. So far we've looked at the agile definition of what agile methodology. We've looked at the dictionary definition of what agile business is. We've also looked at the sort of software methodology, and when we look at businesses, we see there's a definite shift in business from the predictable to unpredictable. I know for a fact we find it hard to get 5 people in a room and get them to have the same view or vision of a process or a business outcome or something like that. So the easiest way to look at the agile business or business process is to actually look at the drivers that influence this change from a very structured approach where we knew exactly how business worked, going into this whole agile business approach. And Pieter Drucker coined the phrase. So there's essentially three drivers, and one of the biggest drivers is the fact that we've got this whole new knowledge worker. And Pieter Drucker, everyone in the management world knows Pieter Drucker is one of the biggest gurus around management strategy, and he coined the phrase knowledge worker. And essentially a knowledge worker is a move away from doing workers to thinking workers. These are people who have contextual knowledge around processes, and they can make decisions based on this. Structured processes don't really work, and they have to circumvent structured processes because they want to make their own decisions around routing, around logic, around all sorts of things. It doesn't mean it's uncontrolled. There's still control around knowledge workers, but it just means that they can make their own decisions on a lot of how processes work. So if you think back around what I'd explained around the top-down programming versus the object orientation programming, they work in a world of object orientation. If they need to right-click the mouse, it needs to respond to that. Knowledge workers are like that. So if they have contextual information, they know something about a process, and I'll explain a little bit more a bit later in the presentation around the knowledge workers, but around this unstructured work, but as soon as they know, if they have contextual knowledge, or if they know the context in which this process is happening, they can make decisions which will route it in a different way, or it'll have different business rules. So exceptions for them are the rule. And the rigid workflow style processes don't really work. So if you've got a rigid workflow engine that drive the work that they need to do, that's why they use email. So these used to be the exceptional jobs, but right now we find with the rate that technology enables our work, that it even goes down right to the lower levels of work. So there's a whole shift to knowledge workers, even into areas that weren't traditionally knowledge workers. So if we look at the second reason why we've become, why there's a move to agile business, it is really that we've become interrupt driven. Now what I mean by that is email conditions us to stop and start all the time. We don't work in a sequential way anymore. I don't know if you do it. I personally, if I see an email come in, I will stop whatever else I'm doing and I'll attend to the email. Sometimes I do 3 or 4 things at the same time. Not that I do a great job of that, but we've become interrupt driven. So we are used to the fact that we don't do things in a long sequential logic or in a sequential state anymore. The other thing that has happened is conversations are now 140 characters. And by that I mean we Twitter. Things like Twitter has changed the way that we see conversations and how we can do conversations. And it's not just Twitter. There are tools like Yammer, Socialcast, and all of those inside organizations that are now have key parts of conversations in them. That's how we talk. That's how we collaborate. And they're broken up into little bits. So we've become interrupt-driven in the way. So I can have certain parts of my messaging and conversation in Yammer, and I can have an email, and I can have a whole lot of different interrupt-driven ways. There's tools like MSN, so I might just also have a quick MSN chat. And Office is looking at productizing what the Microsoft is looking at productizing something they call Office Talk. We'll probably see it in the next versions of Office, CRM, and all those products, where it comes with a built-in collaboration component, or Twitter for Business, or whatever we want to call that. The third driver for agile business, so the first one was the fact that we're knowledge workers. The second one is that we're now interrupt driven. And the third one, which has had a profound impact, is actually Moore's Law, which says, and because a lot of the work that we do these days, and doesn't matter in what type of job it is in an organization, we find more and more that people use computers to do parts of their work, and processing power inside computers are doubling every 2 years. Now, if you look at this graph, it's unbelievable. If you look at the i7 processor that we have right now in most of our notebooks that we carry around, you'll find that it's got 2.6 billion transactions on a chip. Interesting conversation with a financial guy this morning said to me, so how many are there in a packet if there's 2.6 billion on a chip? Not everyone understands, so he said it as a joke, but yeah. So that gives you some perspective of what is happening with computing power. This just drives what we can do with computers and the way that we can use it. What is more interesting is Zuckerberg's law. So we had Moore's law. It came out. He was the CEO of Intel at the time, as far as I can recall. Moore, but Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, has come out with a very interesting, very similar, and he's based it on Moore's law, which is the law of social sharing, which says that we will double the content that we share every 2 years on social networks. And they base it on what they see in Facebook. Right now, there are around 5 billion things, statuses, images, videos, all of that, shared on Facebook a day. Now, this was announced in end of September in 2011 at the FA Developers Conference, so this is pretty recent stats as well. 4 billion things, and his view is that this will double in the next, per person we will double the amount what we share in a social way or in a collaborative way. So all of these things are driving, and it's got a massive impact on business because it actually drives what we do. Now, I've got my own law, which I call Van Schalkwyk's law, and I hope it'll catch on. Which and the statement is that business agility will double every 2 years. If we take all these factors into consideration, Moore's law, Zuckerberg's law, and all the social phenomena that we see and the interrupt-driven, I predict that we will become twice as agile so we'll double our agility every 2 years. That's Van Schalkwyk's law, and you can quote me on that. Then Keith Swenson and Sandy Kemsley. Keith Swenson is the R&D Vice President for Fujitsu, based in the US. He writes a lot on BPM, case management, all of those sort of things. And Sandy Kemsley is a well-recognized BPM analyst, and she also does a lot of writing research, and she's got a great blog as well, which I can recommend. And they've come up with, if you look at Agile BPM, in a webinar that they did on Agile BPM, using, well, just looking at how processes have changed. And what I like about this is that the goal of the system, so when we look at the transactional system, and it's not that these are going away, that's the 80-20 principle. 20% of processes will still be transactional, will still have a rigid structure, but we have 80% of business, and this is from Gartner, that came up with the 80-20, Janelle Hill at Gartner. But what's great about this is that the goal of the system in the past was just efficiency and automation. Now it's moved to problem resolution. We can actually do stuff with this. So it's not just about getting people to do things faster, but it's actually to solve problems. And the challenge is that instead of being highly repeatable, it's become unpredictable. So you need tools to cater for that. So how does that change the way that we work? I said earlier that there are 3 questions. And the first one was, why did we so yeah, just to step back, of those 3 questions, the first one is agile business, and to me this describes that agile business is the new normal. So how does it change the way that we work? Well, in terms of the 3 questions, the first one was, why did we change to agile business? The second one is how do we change the work? And then lastly, we'll also look at the tools that we do this. So if I just quickly go back and we look at the 12 principles of the Agile methodology, we'll recognize that some of these have a profound way, a profound impact on the way that Agile business has changed the way that we work. So the first one is all around continuous improvement. So we've moved away from this trying to get the spec for the process, which was the BPR way, the business process reengineering way. We would spend a lot of money to get consultants in to come spend a lot of time, and it's not that we don't do that. Agile doesn't say no documentation. It means adequate documentation so that we can get the first version out quickly, and we can start improving on that. So instead of doing 3 years of BPR, we can get the base requirements down without spending all our time and money on that. And by the time we've got the base requirement, if we do the 3-year BPR project, by the time we get to do something, all our processes have changed. We'd like to take a lot more of a continuous improvement approach in most of the work that we do these days. Doesn't matter what it is. We'd like to do smaller chunks. We'd like to get results a lot quicker, and we'd like to see things happen a lot easier. And I just love the next slide, which is Salvador Dali said, "Have no fear of perfection. You will never reach it." To me, that is so profound as well in terms of what we're trying to achieve. Do enough we find that right now the way that we work has become, let's do enough so we can get started and get something done. A lot of businesses, especially the ones that perform well, have taken that approach. The second thing is what we want to do is sort of have what we call intelligent experimentation. I love this for BPM, but it's actually a phrase that is used in the BI world. That's where I've heard it being used. But intelligent experimentation doesn't mean it still means that we work in a controlled fashion. We take information from our analytics tools, from the process, from our analytics is a great driver for this. So we'll get information out of our analytics tools and decide how we're going to change it. We're going to split test certain things. The marketing guys are brilliant at split testing ads so that they can see which is the best performing one, and they'll drop the other one and then start a new process ad that will compete with the other one. And so that's how they sort of, through an evolutionary process, build the strongest ad that they can. It's continuous testing. There's no reason why we can't do that in other areas of business, and we start to see that emerges in a lot of that we do. So the other great one that I saw, and this is once again Gartner, I can't take credit for this, is to design by doing rather than doing by design. Gartner has now come out and said, listen, maybe you don't need to spend as much time on trying to get that or to strive for perfection, to get the spec 100% right. Rather, design by doing it, and as you do, you improve it, rather than trying to do this whole design and get the right thing, because you will actually never get there. We find more and more there's a drive, and this impacts the way that we work. And it doesn't only apply to BPM, it applies to a whole lot of areas that Gartner, in terms of their competency areas, that they apply this design by doing now. So there's a definite impact on that. And then also, we change our minds often. That's always been the case. We just never had the opportunity to change our minds or to say that we'd like our requirements to differ. What has happened with the new tools, especially web-based and social tools, we have the ability to change our mind often, and that is now getting into the way that we work. We expect things to change quickly. We expect next time that there's an update on Facebook that my iPhone app will automatically pick it up. I don't have to worry about it. So we can change our minds often. We can, and that's got a profound impact on the way that we work. So once again, and I keep going back to this, but really, if you take those 12 principles and you just apply the business side of it, you can see how this impacts the way that we work. So based on that, agile work is the new normal. We don't work the way that we used to work. We expect that we will be experimenting. We expect that we'll be changing our mind. So we have come up with a agile work approach, which we see as the new normal. So in the last place, I'm just going to quickly talk around the tools that we need to manage this. So I've given you how business have changed and how the work that we've done have changed. So the only thing that now still needs to remains that needs to change is the actual tools, because the old tools don't work anymore. The old way that we've done things don't work anymore with this whole agile business approach. And once again, I just want to remind you, it's not the agile software methodology, even though it's a great analogy around what has happened in business. But this is really, these are business tools that we use, anything from your BI tools to your BPM tools or whatever the case might be. How many of you are still in the waterfall mode, the workflow style, versus the more structured or unstructured object orientation or agile style? So you know, only 20% of businesses can actually survive on the only 20% of processes inside of an organization will survive on your old tools. The others need new tools, and if you're not going to provide it, it will circumvent that. So just quickly going back to what we want to achieve, we want continuous improvement, we want intelligent experimentation, we want design by doing, and we want to change our minds often. So how do we do that? Well, with XMPRo, for example, we give you the ability to create this dynamic interrupt-driven processes. You don't have to draw the flow. People can sequence these at runtime, for example. So we've got inside, as a feature, we can do unstructured process configuration. This is not a run-through of all the features that we have in XMPRo. It is a very comprehensive, big application, and it does a whole lot of things. I'm not even scratching the surface on most of the functionality. I just want to highlight the fact that if you're going to use agile BPM methodology by getting things out quickly, getting a lot of collaborative design, XMPRo's unstructured process configuration allows you to do that. So in the same breath, if you want to do dynamic allocation of logic, instead of writing a lot of code and that sort of thing, you can use our new dynamic allocation logic, which is part of XMPRo as well. If we look at intelligent experimentation, you need versions of processes. You want to split test them against each other. So XMPRo's version management handles a lot of what you need there. So and then lastly, just as an agile implementation methodology, if you're going to use agile in your business and you're going to make your business bend over backwards to accommodate the changes that you have in your organization, then XMPRo allows you to do that. It allows you to get processes out quickly. It allows you to do integration to external applications quickly. It allows you to change the way a process works and test it against another process quickly. It is an ideal tool if you're looking at a agile approach to fit your agile business, and our whole dynamic BPM platform is really built around, and we ideally suited to organizations that instead of wanting to get a whole group of business process re-engineering consultants there are looking to spec enough, get it out, test it, improve it, and look at the intelligent experimentation. I just love the term. So you'll find that intelligent tools will be the new normal. I say, is the new normal? Yes, it is here right now. A lot of companies haven't caught on to that yet, but agile tools will be the new normal. You're not going to be back in the workflow days. Workflow is only a very small component of it. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on this. If you want to see a lot more around how we can actually, in terms of the BPM Agile methodology, free to discuss it with ourselves or one of our partners. We can also give you a full demonstration of what XMPRo is. We'd love to talk to you about your Agile, or how your business can be more agile going into the future. And thank you very much. Appreciate your time listening to me.